Let's see. Is this fixed? Fix. Okay. That's fixed. Yeah, we should have sound now. My fault. I don't know what's going on there. Can you hear me in Discord? Okay, good. Maybe I'll start back from the top just so the recording is there for my editor. But yeah, hopping into it. Decision making wise, we're like 90% of the way there. We're looking at Silva Ascent. So this is our third Silva Ascent. Our implementation is a lot better now for sure. I think that ultimately we can see improvements on some decision-making aspects that I'm going to point out, but more importantly, I think there are times where we kind of lack awareness. So we'll look at the mini map, we'll grab some things, we'll make assumptions, and then we'll die because of the assumptions. We're not like, I guess, refreshing our mini map awareness quick enough, or it's, I guess, maybe we're having too high standards for our teammates. That could be related to coordinated. I'm not exactly sure, but we see some laps there. And then in terms of like the actual mechanics side of things, when we're ready and like dialed in, we are doing pretty well. But when we are, I guess, not expecting it, like we get caught off guard on quite a bit of fights, either by shift peeking or by walking up. And like, there's just a lot of moments where like, oh, like that shouldn't have happened mechanically. And I think that's also partially due to the awareness. So I guess the theme for this week, it seems like awareness and mechanics are tied together. And if we kind of hyperfixate on that, I think it's going to be big. And in terms of the mindset thing, this is a very normal thing that happens. I've reviewed like so many people at this point, and it's just so common. But typically in duo queues, like it's a lot of conversational complaining about teammates in the duo, like comms. You guys aren't doing it publicly, which is good, but it's a band-aid fix to actually like not see the immediate problem. One thing I do like about your comms specifically is that you'll check your duo on like they will say something and you're like, oh, actually I think that was fine. Like you have your own thoughts and you aren't immediately just like one brain cell, like both trying to find blame on opponents, which is good. But there is that like tendency in that culture, and like you'll say something or they say something and it's more fixed towards your teammates, but you weren't doing it the whole game. So credit to you on that point. But yeah, I'll try to point out these things as we go through it. We were doing mostly fast rotate on defense, which was good. Our attack, we were contesting neutral space a little bit better. I'm just going to point out some stuff here and there. But the main thing that I think will get you over the edge these next couple of weeks is actually playing with intensity and maybe even getting a bit more isolated repetitions on the mechanics, like going into a custom and stuff like that. So, for sure. That's good. I think with you as a player specifically, it's not going to be about learning new concepts, especially at this point in time because we're a couple of weeks into it. Like all of the simple macro game plan stuff is kind of highlighted. One sec. Let me check my kitchen real quick. Okay, sorry about that. My cat's messing with stuff in the kitchen. We want more pixel sound. Can't hear pixel. Oh.
That's not good.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's try that. Can you just continuously talk for a second?
Hi guys. Hopefully we can hear me now. Otherwise this is going to be a really awkward session.
Okay. I think the sound is picking up. I think it might have been picking up the whole time, or I don't know. You guys let me know if you guys can hear them. I also just realized there's a 20-second delay for some reason. So I'm not going to end the stream to refresh that, but we can hear them now? Okay. That's the whole OBS settings I was talking about last time. It's just sometimes it just has its mind of its own. But it seems like we're good to go. Always something. Yeah, so the mechanics, all that stuff. Where was I at? before my cat was doing random stuff. Learning. I think in terms of macro concepts, everything is very simple, right? On attack, you largely go with the team. You use util with timing on them. Like you try to get more action by having better spacing. More aggressive positioning, all the stuff we talked about is very simple stuff. And then defense, largely playing fast rotate, kind of like going a bit quicker, and things of that nature. So it's, I guess, like the frameworks that goes into decision making is very straightforward. So it's not really about learning, it's about refining, and it's about making it habitual. And we're like there. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like the thing that will get you over the edge at this point in time, like, is to become so in tune with the match. Like you're getting all the info you need. You're so in tune with your duels that you can kind of win more than 50% of them. Like that is kind of what takes things over the edge. And I think Valorant is a very simple game in that sense. Like if you're mechanically good and you're following a very simple playbook and you're like looking for fights, you are going to rank up, and it's to the point to that which that playbook and that kind of framework works for every single rank, all the way up until like probably high radiant. I can make the argument too when I look at some of these players at like when I review like rank 1 players, they still have that same playbook. The ratio is just a little bit different. Like instead of 80-20, it's like 70-30 or 60-40. Like they can make a bit more unique plays in the moment, but yeah, so I guess I want to highlight that because it really is at some point, once you have like the basic decision making stuff down, it really is just awareness and mechanics and winning your fight. And it's a very simplified way to look at the game. And of course, it doesn't allow for much nuance, but I want you to look in the game in that frame and kind of go from there. And realistically, you have the capability to be a strong fragger, but it's not really working out because the role doesn't really allow for it as cleanly as a duelist. You aren't like maybe as used to playing that type of play style in terms of like hyper fixating on fights. Like if we would compare our gameplay to this ISO this game, if you recall, this ISO was hard carrying, right? Like he was doing a really good job on getting multi-frags and playing for those multi-frags and getting those initial kills and things like that and repositioning. So just from like that perspective, he is on an agent that does it better, of course, but that's kind of the direction that we need to develop as a player if you want to kind of break out of this plateau. Now, you could also go the complete other end of the spectrum where you're like the best support player possible. You're communicating a lot. You're using your util perfectly. You're clearing flanks. You're going for like very creative plays. You will climb that way, but you'll hit a ceiling, right? So I don't know what that ceiling will be, but typically most people get stuck around Ascendant with that type of playstyle. Maybe Diamond. So when I work with players, I always have, like, to be fair, a bit rigid point of view on the game, but I think it's because it sets people up in the future. So a little bit of yapping here, but something that I did want to get across is kind of abandoning the whole current rank we're at. Now it's easier said than done, but I want you to really internalize the fact that we right now are a Plat 3 player. We aren't a Diamond 3 player. We weren't previously a Diamond 3 player. Like all that stuff is just noise. At this moment, you have to understand that the rank ladder, although shit and it has its flaws, if we can kind of subscribe to the idea that the rank ladder is true and wherever it places us is where we belong to be. Okay, so in other words, when you look at your tracker here and you look at your games, you need to accept the fact that you are currently a Plat 3 player and you have to work your way to improve to get better to Diamond 1, to get better into Diamond 2. And you've heard this before, probably in other areas, but like approaching it with a beginner's mindset. I mean, you being a musician, I don't really know how it works with instruments, but let's just pretend like I'm a really good guitar player and then I go and try to pick up the trumpet. Like, you know, maybe some of those skills translate, but like you can kind of understand that I guess starting point is going to be a little bit different. I don't exactly know how that works, but that's my assumption. So with that said, a lot of improving is going to be looking at process goals. So at the end of this VOD, I really want to make sure that we take a look at what we're doing on like a daily basis to kind of check off those points to kind of get to where we're going. Instead of actually looking at the rank and the match itself and like specifically like our teammates, and really like try to hyper fixate on the things that we're doing day to day to address some of the issues. So like if mechanics is an issue, what are we doing to fix that? Are we aim training consistently? Are we playing death matches? Are we playing death matches in a way that is conducive to the problem? Are we playing customs and running through, peeking the angles? Like, it's very simple stuff, but to get better, it really is simple. Like the formula to get better in anything is never anything new. And going back to the musical instrument, at least my experience playing the trumpet, it's not like I had to learn a new thing. It's just like I had to go and play the trumpet for a fucking couple of hours, so I actually knew what the fuck I was doing. So it's not a new concept, it's just the repetitions. And I guess that's what I want to get across is we need to get the repetitions down so that we can make progress. And it's not necessarily ranked repetitions, though that is a part of it. It's like other repetitions are important as well. So big yap session there, but I wanted to kind of get that out as the forefront to the pre-frame of the session. I think it's important that the mindset and the process goals takes precedence over everything. And that's something that I haven't been highlighting as much. And that's definitely my fault. So trying to really highlight that here as we're kind of going into this second wave, I think is going to be important. Accepting we're Plat D, going from there, not treating it from a place of shame, but treating it hopefully as a place of excitement. Like, oh, I'm at this point. Like realistically, it can't get that much lower from here. So it's like, let's try to see it from a positive light. But I guess before I even yap a little bit more, because I've already been going at it for 13 minutes, did you have any, I guess, comments or initial thoughts on any of that? Like, does that even resonate? Does it sound like a bit woo-woo? Like, I guess, where does it land with you?
No, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, like, it's all the process stuff and, like, mental stack changes and stuff. And I think it'll be, I mean, I don't know. I haven't been too optimistic about the game recently, but I think we'll get there. For
sure. I mean, hopefully by pointing out some of the stuff here, you kind of see where we're at as a player, and that should give us some actionable steps on where to go. So let me load into the game. I have Epic Pen open, and then we'll go through it round by round. Like I said, I did have a chance to look through the VOD ahead of time, so we'll be able to kind of focus on it a bit more and then explore a bit more thought process. So I just want to pick my agent and pause the timer real quick. Okay. Okay, so round one, I did quite like this. We kind of just stopped doing this later in the game.
I would disagree with you after that.
What you'll notice is our pistol is we are going gun out and we are taking the fight, right? We could have probably just wide swung with our ISO, so that's something to consider. But at least we're gun out taking the fight and we're not like sitting back holding a lineup. So that is an obvious improvement that we've seen even in our last session as well with our scent. So I did quite like that. Obviously we're going out here, we timed the dart with the flash, and then unfortunately there's these god chalk darts that we die with. But overall this round was a win because our spacing was better and we we're trying to go out, right? So whoops, wrong buttons. So that ends up going out. Next round here, we're trying to do aiming control again. You buy Vandal. I thought this was fine. We're going for the same fight pretty much. We kind of stall out. What we don't really do in the upcoming rounds later is actually force our way through this one way. So you'll notice this round we're like really willing to dart. We're gonna go through it, and then we actually run through and get our kill here. You'll see right here. We're gonna fight this guy and he will die. So the first two rounds our A main actually makes sense. Like it's good. We're forcing it. We're re-clearing A main. As the game progresses, we lose that confidence, and I just want to like highlight it now. So to be honest, I don't remember the rest of this round. I think we just end up winning. Oh no, we had died to this chamber because we pull out a shock dart.
Oh, he's in the corner.
Oh no, this different round.
That is a different round.
Yeah, we end up winning this one. Just clean. This round was called a mid to B. This is where we start getting, where I start noticing some mechanical stuff. And this is like one of the first examples of like the shift peak. So we dart mid, we scaling up mid here. We don't expect this angle, so that is what it is. And we die on the shift peak, okay? It's a very odd angle. He insta-kills us on it. But the only way he's able to insta-kill us on this angle is the fact that we were shift peaking. I would wager that if you just actually did a proper peek here and just pretend like you knew about this angle, but like whether or not he's like close on this line or like far on this line, if you did like an actual proper strafe, you probably don't die here. That's my guess. But we're making the assumption that he's on a different line rather than being thorough, and that's why we get punished. And that is a common theme in our gameplay, is like you will make a certain read on how the fight should go, and then you kind of ignore all the things in between.
Right.
So we die here. It's okay. It happens. But the problem is it's a pattern. So we go fast A main here, which is fine. Obviously he fucks up his dash, or his flash. And then we end up darting here. And this Teo has a god stun and we end up dying. Or everyone else dies. This is all fine. This is just going to happen on A rushes. We don't have the jet, of course. So I wasn't too worried about this round. We get a couple kills after they push us and then we die here, right? It's just a round that's going to happen. This eco round is not super important. You consider ulting. You end up ulting after the scan. We saw the drone and we get some tags here. What I did notice specifically with your self ults this game is that your teammates weren't able to capitalize off of it, and I think part of it is that we weren't emphasizing the fact that we were ulting enough. So even on your defense, when you dart tiles and you're ulting, we could have maybe vocalized that a bit more in the pre-round, and then as you're ulting, you can maybe be a bit more aggressive in those comms. So like in this case here, if you were calming, you say I'm going to consider ulting. Obviously I can't see the voice lines on the left side, but you do your dart here, and then you start ulting. If you communicate, oh, you're gonna ult, you're like, oh, I'm ulting, two left. Like even just those comms and the way that those comms are kind of communicating, like it's urgent and it's kind of in that implied reaction that people are gonna push up, they're more likely to push up, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I wasn't going to ult until I realized Sova was in drone. I was like, oh, I could definitely probably kill that guy. And then at that point, I was a little too honed in on it.
For sure. And that's honestly not something that I want us to focus on right now, is the calm side of things. It's just something I wanted to quickly point out. Start peeking out here, and then we die to the op. So this is kind of going back to the mechanical stuff and then the awareness stuff. You're peeking at like some of the early angles here, which is good. Then the heaven angle peek was kind of lazy, you'll see, right? Like the first peek was good on this close right corner. Boop. And then this dice one was like, okay. Or like the wood box, and then the heaven one was lazy. We shift peek in the gen, and then we shift peek left side gen, and then now we're shift peeking this, right? So after your read was gone, it was like, oh, this guy's not here. Let's just start shift peeking. And like realistically, if you're super dialed in, you actually might get this kill. At least that's the idea. So I will say like kudos. Like I like that you're actually even looking for a fight in the first place. Right? Like a lot of people don't actually look for that fight. They're like, oh my God, I'm a sheriff. I'm going to hide in this corner and angle hold for the entire round. So the fact that we're trying to go for this and actually taking the risk is good, but we have to really dial in and you know, get rid of the shift peeking habit. So
don't go too far like wide here because I want to be able to
forget this round in particular. I think your ISO just ends up running out. We're trying to punish the cat push. You get the initial kill and then we dart. Okay, yeah, it's coming back to me. I think this Teo he runs out for a second. Yeah, and then we just plan to just win this, I think. This round was purely our duelist did well, and we actually didn't do a good job of supporting the duelist because your ISO just gets the opener. We were holding like, I wasn't exactly sure the pre-round, but you and your duo were trying to kill the guy over swinging cat. And this is like kind of a contrast between the A main rounds where like the pistol in the round 2 are a lot more closer in spacing with our duelist. So this round, it goes great because our duelist gets the opening kills. And we have nothing to say positively or negatively about the round. It's just like the round is over. But if it were to go negative, it would be immediate. Like I would assume the reaction would be, oh shit, this duelist is out. And like, I can't believe he's out type of thing. So like in terms of the reflection, it's typically going to be a lot more negative biased. But this round goes great, like I said. And I want to emphasize the fact that this round went well, and it wasn't because we did anything well. It's because our duelist did well. And it's a lot easier to recognize when our duelists do bad because we feel it. But we should be able to make their decisions work well. And something I heard from another client of mine, and I like the phrasing here. It's our job as, if you're behind a player, it's our job to make the player in front of you correct. So if they were to go out and path lane, your job is to go and look market or stairs when you're going out B to make their pathing correct, right? Because like if they go out lane and they're focused lane and they die to this guy, it's an incorrect play. But if you're behind them, you don't double up and look lane. You double up and look like you go out together with good spacing so that you cover their market. And that is like that phrasing and that framework is super important, I think, for an initiator player. You have to make the player in front of you his decision correct. And I think part of that is like you make that assumption for your teammates, but you're actually not doing it actively yourself. So when you're in the post point, you'll see later, it's like, oh, I thought my ISO was closer, or I thought my Phoenix had spawned there. So you're assuming that he is making a play to make your positioning correct, but you're also not doing it in reverse, right? So we have expectations for our teammates, but we aren't fulfilling it first. And it might seem like you're doing that just because you're playing a certain role, and you might do it sometimes, but it's not 100%. And this is the state that you're at in the rank that you're at. It's like you won't play perfectly to make your teammates play, like make their plays correct, and then they also won't make plays that make you correct. And that is where we kind of have to be a bit more self-absorbed and also more aware. So a bit of yapping there, but I want you to hopefully see that the critique and the reflections that we go both ways. And luckily, our duelists were actually, specifically our ISO, is doing a really good job this game to win the game on his own. And that is typically how ranks will go. So let's keep going.
Normal game we've had just be ready to yell at me. Oh, you're here. No.
Drone, right? So he initial kill, gets the kill, right? Sure, the drone is great. I don't mind the drone, but he's getting the opener kill, and our drone actually isn't assisting on that. Now, I do like the drone, but if we were going to drone, it should be very explicit that this ISO shouldn't be swinging off of it. So, or should be, waiting for it. But you get the tag here. We will get the site. We dart. We end up being fourth out, and then this is where we don't have our teammates making our play correct. So this is the shock dart round, I believe. But you're scaling. Take this fight. Your Phoenix shot. He ends up tucking, and then we end up running forward and dying. So I don't think that this is a big problem. I think the thing that I want to highlight is two things. One, the utility habit is kind of coming back, and this is probably a confidence thing. Like I would imagine if you were 10-0 this game, you probably wouldn't pull out the shock dart. You'd probably just shoot the guy because like you're going for the 11th kill. That's one. Two is that you're making the assumption that your Phoenix has the angle, and you're also making the assumption that he knows that you are also scaling right side and going for this heaven fight, and you guys are both pathing on this right side. Like realistically, that is not something that even we do well, right? Like I would imagine if this Phoenix was here scaling right side, you'd probably be back here throwing a shock dart. Maybe like 5 out of 10 times. Maybe the other 5 out of 10 times you do recognize he's scaling and he's going for the swing. But because awareness in this elo isn't perfect, this is something that happens a lot. So we can't put that expectation on our teammates, and we have to take our fights with the expectation that they're doing something suboptimal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I thought he did because he did shoot and then he tucked afterwards, and that was I don't. There's not a way for me to catch that while I'm scaling, I don't feel. But...
No, I agree. Like when you're in the moment there, you just have to grab the info that he shot, and you're assuming that you're both going right. But the assumption itself is giving too much credit to your teammates, if that makes sense.
Fair. That is fair.
And that's kind of the framework that you have to go when you go forward. And this is like assuming that he is going to continue double swinging right side is actually a very high level thing for him to recognize that you want to go right side and also continue going right. Because like most people don't come to that conclusion because they don't even, number one, know it's a thing, and number two, are expecting it, right? So yeah, we're kind of having, like, I see why you're making the conclusion. It makes a ton of sense. And if he was a mind reader, or if you were communicating somehow like fight, then it might come across a bit more. Like I would imagine if you scale out here and then you're going right side and then you're calming chamber heaven. Like it actually might make the implication to your Phoenix that you're about to fight this. But realistically, it's just like, that's not an assumption you can even make in the VCT level unless you make the calm swing right side with me. And that really only happens in late round situations and clutches and things like that. So we have to separate those assumptions from our teammates. And I really want you to kind of internalize that.
Immediately, and now he probably gets there in time.
No.
Actually, it even happens this round with your duo. Like, we're just making so many assumptions. Basically, your duo makes the assumption that the guy lane was the chamber. And then he dies because he's making an assumption, right? Like, I don't understand where all of these assumptions are coming from, that these players are playing perfectly and they're doing the certain thing. That, like, but there's just so many, like, gaps in this elo. And we're dying because everyone's making assumptions.
Chamber wide.
So you call specifically chamber wide, which notice actually how you back up right away. I would have assumed that if we droned and knew the guy was there, we probably would jump spot and go for a dart or something like that to push the guy back. But it doesn't actually seem automatic for us to try and push the chamber back, and you'll see that later in A-main as well. But now we start walking up a little bit, and then we aren't actually even ready to trade, like in terms of spacing, like at all. This guy is back, like walking forward, and you're kind of like staring at this angle. Like realistically, our face should be in the wall, ready to swing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But it's not. So then now we're going for the trade, and thankfully we do get it. Very good micro flick. But it's slightly late, right? It's slightly late. And then of course the sound bait, stuff like that, you know, whatever. We make the call to go A. I did like this. Unfortunately, we will end up falling asleep later in this round. So notice how we didn't even swing here, and we didn't use our dart here. You thought about it. He gets stunned. You pause a little bit. No jiggles, no scale. Now he ults. Now we get reset a little bit. And then this guy's going to walk on the angle and kill us, and we fall asleep. So that's the shift peeking again. But there is a tendency in our gameplay to second guess our swing. And I would wager, maybe this isn't completely true, but let's just guess really quickly. In the 4v2 there, your ISO's in front of you, and then he gets stunned. And you know the Teo is kind of general spot. Let's just pretend like you just wide swung this. You might actually kill this guy. And maybe you don't. Maybe you die and then this ISO falls back in there in a 3v2 and you look back at this like, well, that was dumb. But the tendency and the idea to try to brute force this fight is something that you kind of need to... I shouldn't say you kind of need to. It's something that I would like for you to embrace. Just go and take the fight and see if you win it. And of course, you had your dart here. So if you didn't second guess the dart and you saw the stun, even if you waited, you could have darted and tried to go after. But like, this game all comes down to kills. Everything comes down to kills. It comes down to timing. It comes down to just taking fights, and there's a lack of that. Like if we even go back to this chamber example, it's like we're taking the fight and then we immediately pull out a shock dart because like we're trying to avoid the fight and also assuming that he's going to run back. We're making a lot of assumptions, right? When in reality, we should just filter through all of that bullshit and be like, there's a guy here. I'm here. I have a gun. How do I kill that guy? It's as simple as that. Like Valorant is really just you click head and you win. And if you can boil it down to that, everything else becomes so simple. Because if you can't actually take the gunfight, you're like beating around the bush and there's all this other shit that happens, and it's just then that's when the game gets really complicated. But it really does boil down to just there's a player there, you're here, how can you approach that fight and win it? And half of the game is figuring out where they are, and then the other half is just trying to kill the player. So we knew where he was, we just didn't commit to it. I really want you to understand that. It's like 90% of players commit there with the dart and swing, and then if they die, they die, and if they get the kill, it's amazing. But going for this, like even going for this reset here and waiting the ult out is also fine. But we didn't use the dart, and we also shift peek the angle. So like we just aren't actually as ready for the fight, you know. And then we have like a bit of a harsh flick off, whatever. It's just less. It's more so that we weren't ready for it, and you even vocalize it afterwards. You were like, I fell asleep on the angle or something. And then we won the round. So go team go, right? RSO is doing good. This drone here, we drone again. I honestly forget exactly what happens. I think you tagged this guy. We do just get the sight, I think, for this one. Oh yeah, that was a good dart. Yeah, good dart by them. You counter darted the spam. Just didn't really work out for us. And yeah, that just happened. So it is what it is. You actually made the correct positional play, I think, here by not going giraffe. I would have automatically ran giraffe due to my instincts on just going giraffe. And then also based on the notes we talked about, I believe, 2 ascents ago, it was if you don't have spike, you go giraffe side, which you were trying to, but the dart was there. But you could probably try to force giraffe here anyways. But you actually end up making the correct decision to not go giraffe because there ends up being a drone that scans, and then that would have sucked. Okay, so now this is why we make the assumption. So we made the assumption that the ISO was here and he was closer and he could have played for this drop, but we didn't. So let's kind of rewind a little bit and try to understand why we made that assumption. So he just came out of the ult. We just broke this dart, and then as you're falling back here,
I wasn't expecting that dart, I'm not gonna lie.
you probably registered at some point that the ISO was B main. But looking back at it, like, he's nowhere near B main. He's actually killing this chamber flanking. And then we break this drone, we fall back, and we could have simply just went on the ledge here, but maybe you see the ISO here, like, oh yeah, he's close enough, and then we die to this guy. And it's...
Yeah, my initial assumption here was like, oh, well, I'm supposed to be more aggressive in the way that I am, and I just am forcing that too much here.
And it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's just the lack of the awareness, maybe just due to the lack of repetitions in this spot. I will maybe voice how I typically play this lane position because I think it's really good. But normally if they could come out market, if there's a smoke, I hold it. If there's no smoke, I'll hold the edge like this. Or I'll tuck here and then I'll peek late like this. There's a lot of ways you can play lane. You can even just hold the drop specifically, but typically I like to just hold up here. But it's a good spot. This probably is like a awareness repetition thing, which is fine. But notice how your immediate instinct was like, oh, I thought my ISO was holding, and that happens a couple of times. You'll see it later in the post plant. Okay, so I believe this was no, it wasn't this round with the Phoenix A main, but let's see what happens here. Was that this one? Oh yeah, it was this one. So notice how we aren't actually taking the duel. Right, our pistol in our round 2, we were just swinging A main. Well, to be fair, our round 2 we darted and then swung A main. But like, there's nothing stopping us from just running down A main and swinging with the 2 people in front of us. There's literally nothing stopping us. If you wanted to use your dart, you could use it just to assist you. But the only thing stopping us is like the fear that this one way is like scary. And ultimately, if you have 2 people run through the one way, it's not that scary. If you use the dart, it's also not that scary. So that's one. He ends up swinging. You'll be like, oh shit, I thought he was going to use the dart because of the one way or the flash. But then notice how we don't actually use our own util after the one way. Now everyone's leaving. It's like, what the fuck? This guy got a kill. We're going to let him get away with that? We're going to let them have A main? So like, everyone's leaving. You're leaving. And then now we get caught on the fallback. When realistically, what should have happened is Phoenix dies. Well, what I would have liked to happen at the round start is we just swing A main together with the homies and hopefully we get the trade. But even if after we register the one way is there and the chamber gets the kill, something should happen to punish this guy or to get him off the angle. We dart, maybe we jump spot, maybe we try to just jump peek through the one way and get the kill, which to be fair, this one way is terrible, so we probably could have swung through it anyways. But I don't understand, I guess, how we went from the first 2 rounds to this in terms of the aiming control. You get my point?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, like, I don't know why things devolved to this point either. Yeah, and this is kind of why I was like going on that Yap session at the start. It's not that these are new concepts at all. Like, you know all of this stuff. You know that like if someone's contesting neutral space, you should push them off it so they don't have the info anymore. Like, if you were to look at this VOD conceptually yourself, you'd be like, well, that makes sense. Or like you'd come to similar conclusions, or if it was brought up to you, you would understand it. But it's not translating in our gameplay. And I think part of it is because learning a concept isn't the same as implementing a concept, right? Like, I know in my day-to-day life, if I'm disciplined and I go to the gym and work out and eat well, like, I'm going to be healthy. But like, that doesn't happen consistently to me in my life and then also to everyone else's life. And it's not a knowledge thing or an understanding thing at that point. It's like a repetition thing, so it has to become automatic. So my proposed solution for this, and we'll circle back around this at the end, but like, going through your round openers for the maps. So my round opener for Ascent is like dart, A main, swing, or run through the one way, or drone. Like, it's going to be one of those 3. If I practice that round opener every single time in a custom, I'm going to naturally do it in the game when I'm autopiloting. So yeah, we'll circle around back to that, but that was just an interesting one. My Phoenix saw the one way.
And then you can see there the Phoenix saw the one way and then just peek dry. We also saw the one way, but we didn't dart, right? And to be fair, we didn't peek, but we did a similar, we came to the same conclusion as Phoenix in the sense of not using util. So,
I think they actually hard pushed.
And honestly, I actually like that the Phoenix took the fight. Like, obviously he lost, but like, I'd rather us take the fight. And he might have been thinking, if we're going with the assumption thing, he might have been thinking, oh, I have like 2 people behind me. This one way shit, we could have just swung that. Maybe he's surprised that no one swung with him. you know. So
They had
yeah.
Listen, I should have died. Omen funked
So
up
we
one
drone.
way.
He's there. You
Any flash?
wait for the flash. Yeah, and then we get the flash. I think this is fine. Going off of the other logic, you are aware that you should push this guy back now. So it seems like the dynamic between B main and A main is a bit different because there's no one way. But personally, if I drone that guy and I see him, I'm probably jump spotting. I'm trying to jiggle this guy out pre-fires, and maybe I'm darting to push him back. Like, I don't always wait for the flash. There's tools you can use to push this guy off. Because, like, realistically, this guy's just going to take maybe 1 or 2 shots and then leave. And especially if the dart is there. Or you could even try to dart swing yourself, you know? So we have to be a bit more self-sufficient, I guess, with approaching angles. And not relying on your Phoenix here. But you can make the argument that you want to save your dart for the hit, which is useful. But I kind of just think that maybe mechanically or gunfight wise, you could also push him back. So you time your dart here with the Phoenix ult, you run out.
Two side.
The spacing is slightly slow. So what I want to point out
There's
here
market.
is we should be exiting the smoke almost as soon as the dart scans. So this Phoenix is going through right now. Our spacing after we throw the dart should be walking up so that we're here, ready to swing right side to either get the immediate trade or to swing off your dart or to peek spawn. Because market's clear at this point.
When I was looking back at this, I had no idea why I stood here for a second.
Yeah, and you know, that could just be processing information. Like, I can't blame you for that either. But the spacing's good, right? The spacing's good. So we end up coming out here, which is good. You have spikes, you're going lane. You end up destroying this kid through the box. And then I think that just leads us to a round of win. So oh no, this is the one where we die spawn. Yeah. Okay, so shock, couple. Okay, you heard the market guy, so you look for the fight. I'm like, cool. And at this point, you check minimap again. And clearly, if we look at minimap now, no one has your spawn. But we didn't register it quick enough, and then we died at this guy. This goes back to the assumptions thing, for sure.
I'm giga coping about that. I'm pretty sure I am aware. I'm just throwing.
Yeah, and to be fair, you took some accountability after that round, too. You're like, that's probably something that you just have to learn more when you play more aggressive. So, like, you have some self-awareness in that sense, and that's good. Like, it's not all giga cope. And I think that is good to point out. Like, most people just giga cope the entire time, but like, you have some self-awareness that goes the other way as well. So it sounds like I'm bashing you for coping all the time, and that's not really the case. So early drum, he ult CTPs. We tag, he gets ulted, and you hear this guy spawn, market, spamming. You ult, you thought about darting, whatever. We go out, we kind of win this round, right? So I think it goes pretty well for us. We get on the site, and this is pretty good. What I want to quickly note is 2 things. So this guy's close left, and you hear one of the spamming, and then you see the missiles. It's like, theoretically, you actually have the site. I think you might know that, which is why you thought about ulting and then darting instead. Or, you thought about darting ulted instead, so now they're flooding out. There just is actually a 4th player here. Or it seems like the Teo actually threw missiles from A site. I didn't even know they had that much range. But we end up getting out. Somehow I hit the mute button. Whoops. And we ended up winning this post. Right? So the big thing to point out is actually we just didn't have any gunfights. And I think that's normal because you're ulting. But if you were prioritizing spacing, it could be a little bit different. And then you make a good comm here. I think you recognize your ISO's positioning this time. You registered it, and then you switched it up, and you know what's going on. And then you say swing off me. I was like, okay, this is good. I will say your crosshair placement is really tight, but it's okay because you adjust after your first shot, and we get the kill. So the TLDR that I kind of noticed from attack is actually, before I say it, maybe for recall purposes, it's better for you to say what you got away from the attack half. So maybe we'll start there. In your opinion, what do you think was important to reflect on for the attack half?
I mean, you already highlighted the awareness thing was really one of the most highlighted points, but the second thing was I don't know why I stopped doing, like, because I think, you know, you were right, like the first 2 rounds were exactly what I should be doing, and then I for some reason, like, just stopped thinking about it. I don't know what I was doing. I really hate this VOD, but that's kind of why I submitted it.
Right.
So, like, I don't know, I just need to play the game.
Yeah. How would you word that? Like if you could put it into your own words, that dynamic you're talking about with like the first couple of rounds versus later, just for recall purposes.
Maintaining intent, playing blamelessly.
Okay. And then let's kind of get some examples in there. So, I guess
teammate intention.
Say that one more time.
Especially match team intention, especially when third, fourth, second in line, whichever.
Okay.
Perhaps make my intentions more clear as well. I mean, basically, the whole thing is just like, don't autopilot this much.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. In terms of the awareness point, I guess, what did you want to kind of add to that, or maybe clarify a bit more? Like, what does that mean to you?
I mean, it's weird because typically I think that I have very strong awareness and this VOD is an outlier, but like I need to not make as many assumptions for sure as, you know, I'm not playing in my previous lobbies. And I'm making a lot of assumptions that things that just happened previously, like last act, will continue to happen.
Okay, so just for the sake of examples, maybe just give me one example from this game.
I mean, just like util usage is not accurate, like at all. Typically, like don't expect enemy or teammate util to be anywhere remotely correct. Also expect weird reswings.
Okay. Okay, I think that's fair. Is there any other things that you got out of the attack half?
I think that's a majority of what I remember.
Okay. So in terms of actionables, and we'll get into this at the very end for process goals in terms of customs, but I think maybe it's going to be a bit more important for us to actually define some clear actionables going to attack halves for us. So given that these are our 2 points, the awareness and maintaining intent, what do you think would be a reasonable like action for you to take in the game so that you make progress on these? And I have my own thoughts, of course, so I'll add them as well, but I want to hear yours first.
Pre-round routine to actually get me focused on the round that's about to come up.
Okay, so what does that look like off the top of your head?
Some kind of like centering thing, like a breath thing. Check economy, check what's going on. Think about what I want to do in the opening rather than react to what happens.
Okay. So kind of going through a checklist. I think that makes sense. Any other actionables that come to mind?
I think that's the biggest thing. Because I mean, like, looking back on this is just like I'm not there. I'm just like mindlessly at the keyboard. So like I think that's the biggest thing because I don't think we've noticed it to this degree in previous VODs. So unless you have like another idea about this, but I think making sure that I actually maintain the intensity that I want to have is the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm. I'll say like a very easy actionable that relates to attack is using checkpoints in the round. So like I use this for understanding post plan. So like as soon as the bomb is getting planted or as soon as like I kind of feel like the site is secure, I like look at minimap and like kind of come up with a quick game plan on what is going to happen based on where my teammates are and what fights I want to go. Basically, I use that little downtime of after we've just taken the site and there's like that couple of seconds before they start retaking. Sometimes it's longer to kind of get situated. So the actionable that I would have for me, or that actionable that I would have for you is going into the post plant, taking like 3 to 5 seconds to check minimap and actually come up with a plan. I guess it doesn't even have to be a concrete plan, but it's like, okay, I see one teammate B main, I see one teammate backside. I want to play here, and then that could be the extent of it, but just using that downtime. So let me kind of just write that out. Specifically, when transitioning from a site execute to a post plant, take a pause, could be 3 to 5 seconds, to register where teammates are on the minimap, where enemy threats could be, and find a position for you to play. And you do this automatically, normally, like most people do, but going into this week, because we are bringing up the awareness point, this is one of those things that you will do in the short term, but not in the long term, because in the long term, it will become a lot more automatic. So intentionally transitioning in the post plant, recognize it. I use a bomb plant for an audio reminder for this type of, I guess, checklist. But specifically for this week, try to force yourself to, in the attack half, have that pre-round routine that you're talking about where you're centering yourself, and then when you're going into the post-plant transition, to actually register where your teammates are on the minimap. And if you can do just those two things, set yourself up in the pre-round and set yourself up in that mid-round, you'll probably notice a lot more intent, I guess, with your game, for sure. Okay. Did you have anything that maybe you wanted to add or even remove for the attack half here?
No, I think that's good.
Okay. Let's take a look at defense. Largely, I think defense decision-making was pretty good. Like I said at the start, we're like 90% of the way there in terms of decision-making. It really is just everything else. So,
Which is really
starting to
weird,
be little shock. I think this was fine. We rotate over. One spot of towels is a drone B, so we're kind of making the assumption it's a B split here. We actually didn't commit to the reposition onto site, which I think makes sense because there's no smoke here. But it's a bit scary because now you're playing behind a smoke and they're playing on site. So this kind of goes a little bit back to the flood idea. If you can get onto site, you should try to. Obviously, in this case, we don't have a smoke, so it's very awkward to do so. So I don't hate this play at all. I would just say that this is a pattern we'll see as well on A site, where we actually aren't committing to going onto site and kind of playing in the smoke area. And I know that's something we've touched in the past. And in terms of permission I've given you, it's like, okay, if you have a site player, you don't have to force yourself through the smoke, especially because you're playing a spam agent. But it's something to consider for sure. Like maybe you just find more value doing so. So you dart off of their dart in the smoke and the dash. Unfortunately, we don't get the kill. The dart scans a little bit late, which is something that you might want to consider for the start. I don't know if there's better ones that other servers do, but I would imagine if you hear the dash and you dart it just directly at this guy, you probably would get the kill a bit quicker because it scans faster. I think the more traditional one here is like you wait the smoke and they start coming out and then you dart here. And you actually don't even kill the jet, you kill the other guys, but that's something to consider. You don't even have to play the spam game, obviously, if you're on site. So
that round just felt weird in general because typically I can get 2 off of that dart and it scans more. Like I don't typically get the jet because jet's in her smoke, but I can usually get 1 to 2 guys trying to run lane still with that. And I thought I timed it right because I timed it with their dart and I heard jet dash and I sent it and it just scanned like the Teo super late, and I was just kind of confused at how any of that happened because that is typically not how it goes at all.
Right. I guess like from my point of view, it's like it kind of makes sense because like this dart is so far for the scan. Like that takes like a couple of seconds for it to even go here. Whereas like the traditional dart to cancel the B rush is like here. So like after that initial ping, it's going to scan a lot sooner. So like
that one is faster, but
in that sense, I think it would be normal, I guess. Like that's kind of what I would expect. Like maybe you're better off doing a bounce dart like that. I don't know. But yeah, regardless, we weren't able to actually get on site, so now we're smoked off. We didn't get the spam kill, and the door closed on us. So now our Killjoys on an island. And I guess that's kind of why I wanted to bring up the maybe we should try to reposition onto site. Like I said, it did make sense because we didn't have the smoke. That's one of the downsides of starting market, and you have your smokes on A. It's going to be a bit harder to reposition from market to site. So if I'm going off of that a little bit, like a better starting position might actually just be shock darting from here. And then if they are B, you're able to kind of just go towards site and actually be double site. And then if they aren't here, you can still rotate, and your pacing still isn't really that bad. So that could just be a better starting position than this.
Typically, I like being closer to up in the main, but we talked so much about being fast rotate that I'm definitely like forcing myself to be towards in market or mid.
For sure. And there's nothing wrong with market. It's just, if we got the info earlier, maybe we could have repositioned here. We kind of just immediately saw the chamber, so we were like, oh shit. And then the drone came in and like, oh shit. So we're kind of getting pushed and pulled a little bit. And that's kudos to them, to be honest, for actually not just 5-manning off the start, Like if this was a traditional 5-man, you actually could have made it onto site. So, but yeah, that was that round. We kind of got caught with the guy coming behind, but that's not that important. Round 2, shock, rotate. Eventually they go A. Similar thing with this dart. So we're kind of lining up the dart. You do it off the dash, you dart. And
yeah, I think that was incredibly silly. It
was a good dart timing. It's just unfortunate we actually aren't there to take the fight. So I'm going to propose a different dart that I think just works a little bit better. You just fucking yeet this half and then you can go. Oh, not that. A little bit higher. You can just go. You could also just do the one that I saw from... Who was it? I did a Sova Pro VOD at some point, like in the past week or two, and this was their lineup. I want to say Derek, maybe, but that doesn't even sound right. I think it was Zeppa. Weirdly enough, Zeppa was playing Recon Initiative. He was playing a really good fast rotate, but he would go on this back wall here. I'm pretty sure he aimed in the middle here. It was either a half charge or a 2/3. Either or, but like that was his flood dart. It seems like it was a half charge, and then he just runs out. So
yeah,
that's what I propose here.
I'm being silly. It's just I don't have enough. Like usually, if I'm getting to this position, I'm like, oh, it's retake time. So I threw the retake dart without thinking anything further, and I was like, wait a second.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, in terms of
as soon as I did this, I realized that I was dumb.
Yeah, for sure, and that's the repetition things again. Like if you, it sounds so basic, but like this sequence is something to practice in a custom, and I've never had to do this when I played Raze, but like when I was learning Sova, especially on Haven and Ascent, I had to actually walk through the custom and like tell myself, okay, like this is what I'm doing when this is happening. Like just think about what the situation is in my head. So let's say like I'm playing spawn rotate. I'm like, okay, like I'm literally in a custom thinking to myself, okay, they were spotted A, we have the killjoy turret B, it seems like they're going A. I'm going to fast rotate. They're coming out. I'm darting off of the dash. I'm flooding. I'm trying to swing, match my timing off of the scan, peeking this left side first to try to get the left side to walk out. If I see nothing here, I'm going to continue inching out to try to get the players on the right. If I'm far enough out, I'll try to drop dice and play for the sight hold here, or I'll stay coffin. Like these are all, like I know it sounds so basic, but actually walking through your thought process and your pathing and your util in a custom so it becomes automatic is not only important, but I think a requirement for Sova players. Maybe you could do it after enough brute force repetitions in ranked, but why would you, I guess, throw ranked rounds to do that when you could just spend like 5 minutes in a custom to get that down,
Yeah, 100%. I hadn't considered doing that because I have so many like hours of what I was doing like rigidity wise that I was like, oh yeah, that's super natural, and then this is different because there's things like that where I need to not be silly and be throwing the retake dart here because it's not retake.
yeah for sure.
Yeah, so yeah, I totally get what you mean.
Yeah, and on that point too, it's like I think I saw this in like a Zaska mechanical coaching video. I was like, that kind of makes sense. Like all that time that you were playing previously in that old playstyle, you have to, like that's a lot of time where you're solidifying those habits. So let's just say that you have 400 hours of playtime in this other habit. That's like 400 hours of solidifying that game style. So you want to also understand that, well, it's not going to take 400 hours to unlearn it, but like you're working against the grain. Like it's not like a new habit that you just formed that you're getting rid of. It's like a really ingrained habit. Kind of just like if you were trying to learn how to write with your left hand instead of your right hand, it's going to be pretty hard. Or if you're trying to, I don't know, brush your teeth in a different way, I don't like with your left hand or your right. That's kind of the point here. Like it's very solidified as a habit. You have to spend time to undo it, and with playstyle stuff, it doesn't come automatically to a lot of players. So for some it does, because it's like it makes sense. Maybe they didn't even have a playstyle beforehand, so you can just like plug and play. But for like very, I guess, typically for players that I've seen in the Woohoojin community or the Underpeel community, their playstyles are so hard ingrained because they played structure, that trying to implement a new ranked playstyle on top of it has some friction. Like it doesn't come automatic. So that's kind of the pattern I've seen, at least.
I would agree.
I think we almost end up winning this. Phoenix kills 2 here.
I'm breaking market door.
The thing I want to point out here is how we broke the door and kind of swung out. I did like that you calmed the door break, but I thought it was a bit interesting how we actually just full sent it, trying to match your timing with the Phoenix.
I'm breaking market door.
I think yes, it could have worked, but I don't know. I feel like it almost makes sense to just break the door and then continue taking your fights like as you would normally, instead of trying to get the surprise factor there. But not super important in the sense that it's a common pattern. It's just something I want to quickly point out.
Moment, so
Yeah.
there. I wanted to try to do something.
Okay, so in terms of rotate, notice the rotate's a little bit slow here. If we're going off of the fast rotate idea, as soon as that turret shoots, we should be like knife out rotate. Literally full one brain cell moment. It takes us a couple extra seconds until we see the drone and then the dart. And at this point, we're actually going to be a little bit late unless that B-main smoke comes in. So if they start smoking us, we are going to be a little bit late. Thankfully, there's no smoke and they actually don't full commit. So we end up getting the timing to go out. But if they did push the timing off of that drone, the smokes are coming in. Maybe if the Tejo missiles actually were in the market smoke too to stop the flood, you'd be completely out of the round. Maybe you'd get like a lucky scan or something. But thankfully that doesn't happen, and their hit is slow, and now the smokes are coming up, and then you just wall hacked a guy. Actually 2. So
Almost 3.
Yeah, almost 3 because you did like 113 in the Silva. So this is one of those examples of our pacing actually isn't normal, like isn't quick enough, and we didn't get punished for it this round. But that is something that we need to recognize, that because they didn't punish it, it works out this time, but you might try that exact tempo later, like in a different game, and it's not going to work out, and it's going to be very confusing. So going back here, as soon as this turret shoots, we need to be thinking about rotating. I probably would already be rotating because I have 1 brain cell rotate. Definitely after the drone, which is what you do. There's a dart, and then at this point we're trying to throw a dart. We probably need a dart and then just run out, which is a little bit good timing, but just clearly trying to rotate off of that first 2 seconds, you might be here a bit quicker. And that, I think that is important. And thankfully, one of the guys you killed through the smoke was the Jet. So he isn't able to dash out and make that space. But yeah, rotate a bit quicker. That is, to be fair, a good example of, even though the fast rotate timing isn't as dialed in as it could be, that is a round of highlighting the power of fast rotate just in general. And if you can try to replicate some of that success on A site, your defense will be looking better. So that's kind of what I was saying with the decision making stuff. We're doing like the big picture stuff well. Honestly, forgot this round. The Phoenix ults and then we kind of just run it down. Get the kills. Yeah, this round was fine. This round you weren't ready for the ult because there was like 4 there. This was fine, to be honest.
I was not expecting 4 dudes tiles.
Yeah. I think the play is fine. What I'd be curious on though is like, why aren't we more ready to rip the ult if this is our play? Like if we're darting
because
this,
I wasn't intending to ult for tiles. I was intending to ult one of the mains, but then I saw 4 and I was like, oh well, I kind of have to now.
Right. So I guess a follow-up question would be, if we're intending to ult the mains, then why are we darting tiles? Is that just for like info, like might as well type of thing, or like?
Yeah, I mean, I figured that I might as well use it for tiles, get the info. My Phoenix is here. He clearly wants to take that peek, so I might as well enable that. And if it doesn't scan anything, then it's very likely that they're probably towards A, and then I know that I can like walk out to the cubby without having to like worry about tiles for a second. And maybe my Phoenix is able to take Space Cat, so I don't have to worry about being run up on while I ult if I have to ult A main.
Gotcha. Okay. It's interesting, I guess, because let's assume that they just did an A rush here and you ulted A, and likely you're going to be behind an A smoke, like the tree smoke here. And in which case, if you did still have your dart, your A hill would be fantastic. Right? You'd be able to dart through the smoke. You might be able to get another kill. So
yeah, I agree. That's also would have also been. Yeah, I mean, yeah, typically I think that is better.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you're matching your intent on the play with what you're doing, because like we're kind of doing this middle ground here. Which, to be fair, if you kind of know what you're doing, like you don't really need the dart for the A ult.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
definitely not.
You know, I guess my point is, and to be fair, I'm being a bit like detail oriented here on purpose, because if you were to practice this in a custom, you wouldn't really use the dart tiles. This is more of an adaptation off of your Phoenix ult or your Phoenix play. In which case, maybe we should abandon our play. I don't know, but yeah, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, he's ulting A main, B main, but he's also darting tiles, so maybe that's something in his head, but we just weren't ready for it. And it sounds like it was more like, oh, I'm darting for our Phoenix, but I'm still in my A main, B main ult plan, and tiles isn't really in the scope of that. And I guess that is just interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I expect like 1-2 guys max tiles, and there just happened to be 4, and then I was like, oh, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That was bizarre to me. I was, yeah.
That's fair. So we ult, we get counter ulted, we die, whatever. Okay, next round. Pretty much for the rest of this half, we start playing cat, going for tile spam. So something to point out here is that we actually we aren't playing fast rotate necessarily from this position. We're playing fast rotate from like these two positions here this game. And my question to you is, were you aware of that, number one? And number two, what do you think the differences are?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely aware of that. I mean the cat rotate is much. It's definitely not as fast as the market rotate. I like being spawned and I like jump spotting off of the little
Fountain
circle
thingy?
thing. Yeah. But I don't typically start like in spawn. I typically start somewhere where I feel like I'm gonna be more active. But I mean, yeah, I was very aware of the fact that I moved over here and that it was slower, but there was also suddenly 4 guys tiles, and I was expecting them to have tiles presence another round, and then they kind of didn't, except for another round where there was a lot tiles suddenly. Very strange. But as for like that spawn rotate, I don't know when it's appropriate to like just be there and spawn without having some kind of more active positioning, I guess.
That's a good point. When you surrender yourself to play spawn, you aren't playing the early rounds. You're playing for the site hit, and you're hoping that they rush, right? So it doesn't work well against defaults, but it typically works well in ranked because people just slam sites. So in terms of like a starting position, like first gun round, I'm almost always just AFK spawn because like I don't have a read on where they're gonna start, So
Right.
that's kind of, it's just a good fallback position if you don't have any hard reads, at least compared to market. My advice. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's a place I fall back to frequently. Like if I start like B lobby or something, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna just like dart, and then if it scans nothing, I leave and I go do that jump spot and spawn. But that makes sense as well.
Yeah, and to be fair, if your teammates have enough delay for you to play in these like slightly leaned positions like market or cat, then you'll be able to still have the timing on your rotate. It's just like pure neutral is spawn, so your rotate timing on A and B is like somewhat equal.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, what we'll see this round, I believe, is they go A or something. What I want to point out, I believe, this round is actually how we didn't push ourselves through the smoke.
Yeah, I have no idea why I'm sitting here. I looked at this and I was like, I don't know. I was mad about it. I don't know. I don't know why I'm standing here.
Yeah, the patterns coming through though is like it's similar to what happened on B, like where we're like in the market area. And to be fair, like one of the later rounds you do end up going through the smoke. It's just it's not an actual playbook, which I guess goes back to the repetitions and stuff. So thankfully we get the kill and go through, and then we're able to kind of reposition for the reload and play the round after that. So ultimately, like it works out pretty well for us because we're able to actually push through the smoke and get the kill on the chamber. But theoretically, let's say the ISO loses the ult, you probably lose the round. Not because
yeah, I think like playbook agnostic. I have no idea why I'm doing that.
For
like,
sure.
This is just weird.
Yeah, that's valid. It's valid.
I think like mentally, like I talked about this a little bit ago, but like this is game 4, and I have had 3 4v5s at this point, and I'm like just kind of, I don't know. I thought about like not continuing this series for a little bit because I was like, I'm kind of just getting owned, and I know like mentally it's just me like fixating on things, but like I don't know. So like I'm doing weird things here that I find like completely unacceptable, but I don't know why I was doing them other than like that.
And to the point, like when I was making the statement at the start, it's like our decision making is 90% of the way there, right? Like it's just like these lapses in decision making that happens occasionally, and that's okay, right? Like we are getting the big stuff down. It's just not, the timing is like as dialed in as it could be. Like to be fair, we did make it through the smoke and still get that kill, and then on that B round, we're still able to be there in time despite it being like maybe 2 or 3 seconds not optimized. So in that sense, like we're still headed in the right direction. It's just that's just where the repetitions come in, I think, like really solidifying those habits and in further games, but also in customs. And then the other side of things too is like addressing the mechanics and like the awareness piece. So
yeah, it just feels like I've taken like several steps backward, and it's not like these are unique new scenarios. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think this is a weird game, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like in terms of playstyle, at least if I'm recalling Haven, like we're very much like an extremity player. So, and I know Ascent was out of the pool too, and then now it's kind of getting reintroduced this act or last act or whatever. So like maybe last time Ascent was in the pool, you were much more of like a B main anchor, lane Odin, B main spammer type of thing. So maybe you just, even though they aren't new situations, they just weren't, you didn't get into them as often as you were before, because obviously there's not that much reason for Sova to start lane anymore. Which weirdly enough, when I was watching Zeppa VODs, he was starting like not lane, but like on site going for early shock darts. So there was some interesting stuff there, but he didn't do it the whole game. I do recommend you take a look at that VOD at some point as well.
Yeah, I definitely will.
So we start Cat here again. ISO kills 2. This is kind of what I mean with the ISO is taking the game into his own hands type of thing. He's on an agent that it really helps him do this, but that's kind of thought process you want to be in. So this time we actually did reposition onto site. I was like, that's good. This is great. And I think they didn't hit the site. I think they blinded or something and then canceled. So, but if they did hit the site, we were in a good position for it. So that was a good rotate. Ultimately, I think they end up just re-hitting or something. You'd end up darting here, peek this. Yeah, they end up re-hitting and then you're on a flank or something. And you almost win this, so. Ultimately, I think this round is fine. It's just, they ended up re-hitting. You made the decision to flank instead. Someone made the calm hell. I thought he was hell too. That is what it is for that one.
I also thought it was hell, like, yeah.
Good play by him on the reposition. Same cat thing, they go A. This time, you drone cat for the mid thing because you realized they aren't going fast A. I was like, okay, that was smart. Then your ISO gets the kill on this. I was like, that works out really well for us. Then we reposition onto site. And I thought this was good too, but then we just didn't respect this angle and then we died. And that's kind of like reminiscent to some of the stuff we saw on attack side, where we're kind of just like, this wasn't really a shift peak, but it was just like backpedaling into it. But I can appreciate that you're trying to get onto site. It's just the actual fight itself it wasn't as dialed in, and you noted that as well. So
yep, there was some kind of cognitive disconnect there because I was like, I I am aware I am about to walk into this. I don't know why I'm like, it'll be fine.
Yeah. Hoping.
There was 5 guys aisles.
Revealing area.
Okay.
Deploying drone.
Honestly, forget this
Back up here.
rounds in particular. I think we lose 1 or 2 more.
Okay.
Is this the one where they dash out?
Yeah, this is the dash.
Yeah. So we end up going through at
try to-
some
try-
point. We should probably be through at this point after the Omen blind.
Try to close it. I agree.
But we did end up going through, and then this works out for us. So unfortunately, we get traded.
I'm
But
not looking to the Omen ult.
I did
I'm
like this
kinda
position.
too-
Maybe we could be a bit more clear on peek off me, because like your clove is fucking inting. But once you actually are through the smoke, you could call 'em, like, I'm out, or peek off me, like I have aiming, like something a bit more clear.
So there's one play.
And unfortunately, we do get traded. So the clove overswung. The ISO ran back to hunt the Phoenix ran back to hunt the Omen. And unfortunately, that kind of got rid of our like contact peak type of play. But maybe just being
Yeah.
a bit more clear communication wise. In terms of positioning, I was happy that we actually made it through the smoke though. And then we lost 1-1.
House?
That made
Oh, I'm ready to do my bad.
I did remember that. That was whatever.
Walk in.
I'll be.
That was kind of funny.
Yeah, that was
One more.
that was fucking hilarious. Oh yeah, this guy's 3B. Yeah. So this round's just whatever.
Any time they go B, they
We lost to Behold. That's just it is what it is.
Get out of my way.
I did like this position. I was a little bit scared because of the Civil Dart and the ult, but we kind of committed to it. It seems like more of a hard
Jump in,
lead
jump
rather than anything, but
I'm not gonna help you.
interesting position. You get the dink.
She might have gone wide launcher. I'm going back to second dart.
I did like this. You are vocalizing, you're rotating and leaving, and then you're also prioritizing the A flood rather than fighting the lurker here. So I thought that was a really good decision. I forget if they commit or not. I think there's like a Silva that kills your clove or something, and then
Yeah, he's like alone here.
yeah, and then they end up going B. Yeah.
Oh, he had the judge.
And then this judge here. This honestly isn't a big deal. You thought he was lane. The main thing I want to point out here is just the tension on the tracking. You can see it's like very like slow and tense. That's just a panic thing, to be fair, and you haven't really had the repetitions in the game, so it's something, to be honest, that I fall into. It's just everyone whiffs, but if you did want to isolate this in the aim trainer, you would try to smooth out your aim a little bit more, but yeah, not a big deal. I think we end up winning this round. So
Yeah.
okay.
I was full expecting him to be like walking down
Yeah.
stairs. I've taken that peek a bunch. That's the only time that's happened. But,
Most of the time they do commit. I guess like
yeah.
if he didn't have a judge, he probably would have kept going. He was
Yeah,
like,
exactly. I was like, he only did that because he had a judge and he wasn't going to walk down there in the first place.
yeah, for sure. Okay, so similar thing what we did on attack. Just any takeaways that you got in your own words for defense?
I think overall, like a lot of the adjustments that, we've been talking about were getting done, and I was overall very happy with like how that was going on. There was just weird things where I don't know what I'm thinking about or what I'm doing at the time. I'm just like not flooding, and I don't know why, because that is normally like I am 100% ready for that kind of thing, and it was really, really weird looking back on this.
For sure. Okay, anything else to add to that?
I should probably look for opportunities to play that spawn rotate, because I do think it is very strong.
Okay, that makes sense. Anything else?
No, I think that was a lot of the big things that I noticed in the VOD. I mean, there was that one conversation about like that one ult from Tree, but I think that was just like,
It's not really that big of a deal in the grand scheme
yeah,
of things. Yeah,
I didn't think it was either. Yeah, so I unless you have anything, I think that's all I noticed.
Yeah, no, those are the big ones. I think our defense for the most part looks in the right direction. Like I said, decision making wise, we're like 90% of the way there. In terms of actionables that I would add here, this really is where we go into repetition. So to start, I guess I want to say that Valorant is a dynamic game, and you can't really like flowchart Valorant to the extent that some people think. But I think that defense is largely solved in terms of playbooks for the basics, right? So if they're rushing, you do this. If they're defaulting, you do this. And then from there, it's more dynamic. So as a recon initiative player, it's very important to have the skeleton playbook structure for your defense, and to kind of really have that outlined, and then also practicing it in customs. So what I would recommend here, since I do pro reviews, is I would suggest you actually look at either the how to play Silva Ascent video or the pro review just independently, or both. Realistically, if you do both, you have more context. But it kind of boils down to creating a playbook on defense to account for the major things. What is your fast rotate positions? How are you flooding onto sites? What do you do against defaults? Like those type of questions. Maybe more loosely, you have your A site hold playbook, your B site hold playbook, your fast rotate playbook, and A site aggression, B site aggression, like typically those spots. And then like if you have like how you want to hold down A site, how do you want to hold down B site, how do you want to fast flood, how do you want to aggress and push A main, how do you want to aggress and push B main for all maps, like you're like 90% of the way there, you know? Like you don't really even have to add anything to that. You'll just, your defense is kind of like automatic. So my suggestions to do this would be to create this is start with the pro reviews / agent map guides in the spreadsheet, dojo resources. And then I'm going to put this in bold. Then actually going into a custom and pushing out repetitions for this.
Yep.
And then,
this is all stuff I've done before. I just need to update for this new stuff. So yeah.
For sure. And then this is where we're kind of hop down into actual overarching process goals. So I guess we'll start with generally, what are you doing now? Do you have a warm-up? Do you play a set amount of ranked games? Do you have aim training routine? Do you VOD review? Like, just outline as much as you can in terms of what you're doing now, like on average.
Sure. Like on an average day, I'll play a bunch of DM to start, just mainly because I do it for fun, as well as like actual like kids like active practice of mechanics.
Okay.
And then, you know, maybe I'll do range. Range is variable, but I like doing some range stuff sometimes, and I'll do some of what like Valen does, but that's not an everyday thing. That's like when I feel like I have the bandwidth to also do that. And then I'll do some of the benchmarks, the Voltaic benchmarks. I'll do the tasks that you've been suggesting, the ones that I enjoy, as well as the ones that I know specifically target my personal weaknesses. And I'm not like worried about trying to push scores or anything. It's just, you know, trying to do them consistently. And then at that point, either I'm gonna jump into games, or I'm gonna take a pause potentially, come back, play like another 1 or 2 DMs, and then start playing the game.
Okay, makes sense.
And there's no like set amount of games I tend to play. It's just like I'll go for as long as I feel, you know, like playing, I guess.
Going by feel, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, feel by thing. And then as for VOD review, I'm typically streaming the entire process. So like I'll go back and I'll look at games I felt were like I had questions about, or that I felt like, you know, were winnable, or just something weird happened. I'll go back and look at those. And like for VOD review, is it myself? I mean, I haven't I've done so much like Sova VOD stuff previously that I haven't been doing it nearly as much recently. But now, you know, with like the Ascent changes, I've gone back and looked at like some Zekin stuff. I've looked at Cavern. But as for like a like detailed VOD review session, I don't think that I have done that super recently.
Okay, that's fair. I don't really think they're super necessary, to be fair. So, um, okay, so here's a question for you. Um, do you do well with very strict routines, or do you do well with a bit more leniency?
I am a very like strict routine oriented person. When I was doing my degrees, it's like I would do the same thing every day at the same time. That's just
Okay.
the way that I function best.
Okay. So let's try to create one of those for this, and keeping in mind our actionables specifically for defense here. So, um, so starting with warm up, you kind of have your thing that you're doing here. Two questions would be: Do you would you prefer your warm up to be longer or shorter? Because some people like to warm up for an hour. I have my own opinions on that, but everyone's different. Some people like to warm up for 5 minutes. Some people like to warm up for 15 to 30 minutes. And then also, do you think that you would be more consistent in terms of mechanics training if it was something that you did beforehand or something that you did afterwards, even if it's not as optimized?
In terms of length, I mean, like coming from like a music background, typically like my warm up for that could be 2 hours, you know? So
Right.
like um typically, you know, I lean on a longer end. Maybe it could definitely be too much. I think that there are times where I overdo it. And then I end up just tiring myself out, which is why that pause typically exists. Um so, you know, maybe I should be optimizing that, looking for it to be a little shorter. But I like I mentioned before, I'm used to it being a lengthy process, so I don't know which is like more optimal for this.
For sure. Maybe I'll spitball off the top of my head of what I would suggest, and then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So, I would start by actually not doing anything mechanically warmed up. Like, I would start with actually refreshing on the playbook stuff. So, the initial thing would be loading into a custom, revisiting playbooks for defense, maybe offense, and running around and putting yourself into that situation and using the util for it. So like practicing sight holds, just an example, sight holds, floods. And I would probably say doing this for like 5 minutes. I'd probably set a timer, 5 minutes. Doesn't really have to do that much. After you do that, for the same map, I would recommend you just walk around the map. And this is very basic, but walk around the map and clear angles. Clear angles as you would like to in game. This also could be for 5 minutes. Realistically, this is something that you already know how to do. It's, again, going back into the repetitions type of thing. And it's something that even immortals should still be doing if they find themselves kind of like falling back into bad habits. So, you know, if we're doing the ascent example, just walking around A main and seeing how you want to clear that, and then like clearing the actual A site, because obviously we had the one example when we were A site and we're peeking into site, it was we ended in shift peaks. Like we peaked this first one well, we did the second for the box, and then after that it was kind of just like shift peak. So those things, like walking the map, really clearing your angles, don't have to do it for too long. So in this case, you're in the range for 5 minutes for the util stuff. You're in the range for 5 minutes for the angle clearing stuff. After that, I would probably back out and do some range stuff if you want to. Typically, I like to do like 2 to 3 minutes of various drills, whatever you want to kind of get warm, whatever works for you. But I guess for me, I would suggest starting with some form of tracking, just like picking a bot's head. I like to do this for like a minute. And then after that, I like to do like eliminate 50 to, oh, honestly, I should do the practice bots first. Practice bots and just like practicing shooting bots, just shooting bots where they're all spawned. You're kind of going left to right, right to left. To right, right to left, maybe adding in some strafes. Super basic, right? And then after that, I'll probably do like eliminate 50, like one run of that, just like practicing my shooting technique. And then I will do 2x hard bots, similar to the Valen thing, Valen style. So one outside of the range, and then one inside of the range. Close flicks, close fast flicks. Typically instant with no hit confirmation, and practicing spraying. That's typically how I do it, right? So if I were to do range stuff, this is what I would do. 2 to 3 minutes, maybe 5, depending on how my hard box is going for the day. And then I would do DMs, like I would say 2 to 3 death matches. And this is going to be almost always, for me, pre-aiming and peeking. So like I play no sound. I pre-aim and peek most angles, emphasizing clearing off angles to make sure I'm really thorough. And then think about how you would clear angles in the custom from earlier and try to execute it here. And that's pretty much the warm-up that I abided by if I got rid of this, because I didn't do this as part of my warm-up. And this is kind of what I did when I was getting myself back to Radiant recently, because I wasn't really in love with the whole aim trainer thing. Previously, when I was pushing 900 RR, I would do ramp routine, which would take about 15 minutes, the range stuff, and then the 2 to 3 DMs. And then by then, my warm-up was like 45 minutes to an hour in, and then I would play my ranked games. So in that sense, I can relate. That was a very lengthy warm-up for me, but I didn't really want to keep doing that, I guess. So I kind of got rid of the ramp routine, and this is what I was doing recently. So this is what I recommend to start with. And then after that, your ranked games. So 3 to 5 ranked games based on energy. Never insta-queue. So at least take a pause after each match, even if it's only for like 10 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds. Ideally, 1 to 3 minutes is probably better to go pee or something. And then after 3 games, evaluate if you want to keep queuing. And this is what I would consider a ranked block. So if you wanted to play more than 3 to 5 games, you would take an hour break, and then you would come back, you do the whole warm-up again, and then you play your ranked games. It's a bit tedious, but for me at least, and my experience working with other clients, this is a useful frame to make sure that you're playing with high intensity. And in your case, I think it probably would make sense to do following the structure as closely as possible, because I think you know kind of what standard you should be playing at, and we're not really reaching that standard consistently. So this is just a way to kind of set yourself up for success.
Yep. Totally makes sense.
So off the top of my head, this is what I would do. Did you want to change any of these things, like your own thought processes, just to kind of get it in writing?
No, I think I love this, how it's blocked out like this. I think this is like I prefer something that is like very clear cut and has this kind of formal style, I guess. So I mean, I don't think there's anything that I would add. I mean, like, because I don't think like I mean like my you remember my benchmarks are very, very good. I don't feel like I need to like beat myself trying to do more there. I think a lot of it is just like I'm taking fights in a lazy way,
right?
And I think
it's the actual setup. Yeah.
It's not like raw aim stuff. It's the setup into it. So I think this is the most structured and optimal way to address those issues and move forward.
Cool. I'll add some bonus stuff here, like if you have extra time, if you whatever, because like typically you, based on your tracker, sometimes you play more than 3 to 5 games. So if you do have the extra time, some bonus things you could consider obviously is like aim training for weaknesses. I wouldn't really recommend more than like 30 minutes max, but typically I've personally only done like 15 to 20 minutes. Going back to my grind when I was pushing 900 RR, I would do the ramp routine, you know, the in-game warm-up, the death matches, 3 to 5 rank games, and then afterwards I would spend like 12 to 15 minutes doing the routine that Minigod made for me, and then that was my day. But because I was getting aim coached, I made sure to do that, but I couldn't really stomach the idea of doing too long. So, and you don't really need that much time for that. So that is a bonus. The other bonus would be setting yourself up for the next day in terms of playbooks, so you can revisit that during your warm-up. So like pro VOD reviews, outlining the playbook either on paper or in a Google Doc. Yeah, I don't know how you make your playbooks. You said you'd done something like that before. I don't expect you to do this aim training thing or the VOD review playbook thing every single day. This is more something that you'll do when you have extra time, or it's like front loaded. So in this case of the playbooks, you might front load it for the upcoming week, but like as we kind of continue going, it doesn't really make sense to do it all the time. So like as time goes on, you're probably transition from less playbook stuff to more aim training stuff, or to doing less of both. It's more of like an as needed thing. So in this case, this is probably going to be front loaded, but and then the other thing I just want to copy and paste down here is the actionables from attack. So reminding ourselves of what the process goals are. Process goals for attack, just as general, and then process goals for defense is just creating the playbooks, but I'll just copy and paste that here as well. And maybe for the sake of organization, we could put something like this, I guess. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns?
Nope, that all looks super, super good. I think we're in a good place.
Cool. I'm just gonna actually put that here instead. I think then I'll kind of just let you kind of go at it for this week. The important thing is really just dialing on the input rather than the output for this type of stuff, as you know, with just skill learning in general. So yeah, I think largely the decision making is there, right? Like I don't think we really have to super hyper fixate on that. I think the more you get the repetitions in the customs and stuff like that, it'll kind of more likely be automatic. And I think that's kind of what we have to do. So yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. In that case, we'll link back up next week. Next week, maybe we can aim to do the player breakdown too, because obviously we didn't do it this week.
Yeah. Definitely.
But yeah, we'll just leave it at that. And if you have questions throughout the week, obviously hit me up. But other than that, we'll just go again next week.
Alrighty. Thanks so much.
Of course. You take care.
You as well.
Peace.
Bye.
All right, chat. I'm gonna end there. There is unfortunately a 20-second delay for some reason because I guess I was playing a ranked game or something. I don't even know the last time I played ranked. But I'm ending the stream. Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the coaching. Hope you guys learned something. Yeah, I'll just leave it on that. You guys take care. Peace.